Hello there and welcome to the video. We're gonna brew freakity who, guess who? We're gonna look at the tiebreak match between Samuel Shankland with white pieces and Sergey Kajakin with the black pieces. And I'm gonna change it up a little bit and not look at just single game. I'm gonna look at how the tiebreak played out. So this is the first game, 25-10, and we'll probably go a little bit faster over these. So Sam started with the white pieces. They both won with the white pieces in the classical portion, and Sam opens with c4 here. We get g3, e6, and we have the Catalan, d4, bishop e7, classical Catalan here. The open Catalan main line here, d takes e4. Queen c2 and a6. I played this a bunch of times and usually I always take with the queen here. I feel like a4 has become more of a modern trend, and this is something I want to add to my own repertoire a little bit more. Well, there was a cool game by Aniskiri against, wasn't it against Wang Hao at what can I say? Bishop d7. The bishop usually goes to c6. Black tries to solve the problem of the bad bishop like this: bishop c6, bishop d5, and we get the pieces out, h6, and white takes on f6. Now he's happy to do that because after e3 he has a bunch of pawns on dark squares and he has a light square bishop, so they work quite well together. The Capablanca rule, we've been over this many times in many videos, but I want to emphasize things like this. I want this to be a learning channel, so I try to point these things out. Queen d6, rook f to b1, indicating that he wants some action on the queen side, so I guess b4 would be in the cards if black didn't play a5, which he did, a5. Queen comes back to e2, and now white probably wants to get the e-pawn going at some stage. Black takes on f3 and plays c6, so he gets rid of the bishop on c6 and gets a very solid structure. Very similar to what black does in the Fort Knox in France. There he plays an early bishop d7, g6, he takes, and then sets up the pawns in Kajakin fashion like this. So black is very solid, and well, the Minister of Defense has the black pieces, so no surprises there. And we see that black is also placing his pawns on the opposite color of his bishop, so both parties are following the Capablanca rule, so both have a very solid position. But white has a little bit more flexibility with his pawns, and he's able to organize e4 at the right moment, and he seems to be doing that here. Rook a to c1 gets the rooks to half open files on in the center of the board. Queen to b3, bishop d6. And there's a lot of probing around in these positions. It's very positional, so you're kind of trying to improve your pieces and then see what happens. Queen e7, rook c to d2, bishop to b4, rook d3. Now this is fully protected, so Sam is ready to play e4 here. Knight to f4, e5. We have a trade, and now there's a little bit of a transformation. White will get 4 against 3 on the king side, and black has 3 against 2 on the opposite side. Knight to d3 and e5. Queen c2, knight c7, and here Sam takes on b4. And it doesn't look like much, but white has some pressure. This pawn could be, he takes on d7, this pawn could be weak. We can imagine maybe some undermining action with a6 at some stage when this would become weak. And for now, queen is well placed on c5, attacking this. Queen d2 was played, and now queen d6, which forces black's hand because this is under attack as well as this. Could we play knight d5 here? That's a consideration. It doesn't look very good. Probably we can, worst case scenario, we can take and play e6, but Karjakin took on d6, probably thinking it was okay. He's got to get the king around and then probably win the pawn. But here Sam had an ace up his sleeve and he played a pretty nice move. Can you see it? Can you see it? Well, once you know it's a tactic, you start looking and you see that bishop takes c6 is working. If black takes it, we play a5. The only way to stop it is knight here, but then we can play a6. And if the knight takes, it's no longer able to stop this pawn, which will run off the board. So the combined power of the two passed pawns will overpower the knight. So this vital pawn is enough here for Sam to win the game. The knight can't take still because of this, so we have to bring the king. King f6. Now we can protect, and notice that the king is not approaching the pawn yet. He tries to go for counterplay, g5. If he approaches, we snap this and we snap everything basically. So g5 was tried, but now we're in time to walk with the king over to the queen side. Nothing that can be done. We can pick this one up or just this one. GG. And the bishop is of course very strong. It will always stop black's counterplay. So first blood goes to Sam Shankland, who again wins with the white pieces. So on to the second 25 and 10 game. And Kajakin needs to win. He opens with e4. In the classical portion we had a game with the French defense. Kajakin played the king's Indian attack and was able to win a very nice game against Shankland. So now Shankland goes for the Sicilian. We have d6, d4, ct, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, the Najdorf, and Kajakin goes for h3. Basically, almost everything has been played here for white on move 6. Bishop e3, bishop g5, bishop moves to c4, rook g1 has been played. Even g4 is a sacrifice, I'm not sure, probably not, but yeah, rook g1, h3, everything under the sun. So h3 is kind of a modern move here, where white goes g4 and sometimes fianchettos the bishop, but mostly it's setting up a kingside attack. And Shankland goes for kingside fianchetto, so the game becomes more like a dragon here. Bishop g7, castles, bishop to e6, and Kajakin strikes immediately here with f4, queen a5 and f5. And here we have kind of a moment similar to the famous Spassky-Fischer game where Bobby took the poisoned pawn on h2. So maybe it's an American thing, I don't know, I don't know, but Shankland took on a2, and this is probably a mistake similar to what happened to Bobby. This bishop is not getting out. Bishop to d2, castles, and knight d5. And we don't have time to take with a bishop because our queen is hanging. So Shankland was banking on this working, knight takes d5, opening up an attack on the queen, but Kajakin took the queen. We had a trade and knight e3. And unfortunately the knight has to do something. It takes on f1, and now you see that this guy is simply not getting out. We're going to play b3 and then either rook a1 or rook a4, and nothing to be done. And Shankland went for the sacrifice on b3, trying to get something back, but a piece is just too much material here, and Kajakin made no mistakes. A mistake would be, for instance, not covering this square, rook c3 check, but it is covered, so yeah, we don't really need any explanation of these moves. The bishop comes to f6, and now we have set up a mating pattern. If the rook gets in, we're going to mate here. So naturally Kajakin tries to set that up. He trades off one pair of rooks, and now he's ready to get the other one in. Rook c3, rook check, and here is the mistake, king e8, and we are getting mated here on d8, so Shankland resigned. So that means they had to extend the match to further rapid games, 10-10 time control. And let's have a look at the first game. Again, Kajakin with white. Before each match they draw, who plays white, and Kajakin got white again, so they get another Sicilian. They repeat the Najdorf, and of course Kajakin is happy to do that. Knight c6, g4, similar stuff, takes, bishop g7, and now the immediate e5 here. Knight e7. For the moment, it looks like we are, gaining a pawn here. So what's going on? Long castles by Kajakin, and bishop takes e5. So white gave up a pawn, but black has some problems with development, and where to put the king. Plays queen a5, and again we have this knight d5 move. We have the trade, and now we need to find a way to stop this, and Sam didn't find anything better than king d8. We placed the rook somewhere. We could give the check and just spoil the castling, but we can also play bishop h6, and I guess followed up with f4, and we have a very nice initiative, it seems. But king d8 was played, f4 anyway. It looks like white is getting very nice positional compensation for the pawn. The knight especially is very strong. Yeah, if we try to push it away, then we can open a d file like e6 and d5. Then we can always double the rooks and play c4, and the king is at the end of it. So it's difficult to get the knight out of there. a4, rook a6, bishop to f1, and look at this total domination. We can win the exchange if we want. h5, g5, h4, rook e1. White doesn't even take the exchange. Black is totally paralyzed. Bishop to a7. And this just looks like complete torture here for black. Finally, Kajakin took the exchange, and bishop e6 was played. Knight to e3. And this doesn't look good. The knight might come to c4. We can take this pawn, attack this pawn. Bishop c7, attack on this. Rook d3, we had to avoid knight f3. Knight d5 check. And this looks like a trip to Ouchtown. Bishop has to take. And now the dark squares are just, toast, basically. Kajakin took on d6. And the irony is that after some further moves, king c7, bishop d8, bishop to b6, we're again getting mated on d8. If we go back to the previous game, you were getting mated on d8, and the same thing happened in this one. Getting cluster mated on d8. So Kajakin takes the lead, and so far all the games have been won with the white pieces. So we move to the second 10-10 game, and Shankland, well, he needs to win. He needs to reproduce what he did in his first games with the white pieces. And let's see what happened. Played b3, went for a more quiet approach here, not going for the Caroline. And this could be more like a hedgehog setup when black goes d6, but Kajakin goes d5. It's kind of a mix of the Queen's Indian and the hedgehog, like a hedgehog where you can play d5. So black seems very solid here. He takes on c4, rook d1, and queen takes c4. So difficult to get something going here. We don't have any pawns in the center, so there's no pawn tension. White has a slight lead in development, but it's so slight, it's hard to see something that we can do with it. But Shankland plays e4 here, trying to get something going, get some pawns in the center, at least take away some squares. Rook takes, knight e5. Naturally, Kajakin goes for some trades because, well, he needs a draw. Takes on f3 and bishop to b4. He gives up the bishop pair here. Bishop takes c3, queen c7, and here, instead of holding on to the bishop pair, Shankland decides to inflict a pawn weakness on the king side. But is it enough? e5 takes, and we have a trade, and queen takes e5. Black's king is slightly weaker. We may be flirting with something like this, but it takes time. And queen f3 hits the rook. If rook here now, it's actually black who's striking first. So rook d7, h6, making luft, covering g5, queen c7. The rook covers the pawn, so now we're threatening to take this. So if he had taken this, then this drops. So Shankland defends. hitting this pawn, but Kajakin finds a nice way here. He gives up the pawn, but he gets this one in return. And now it's pretty clear that it's next to impossible for white to win here. He tried to get something going here, Jack, Jack, and G4. But Kajakin offered the queen trade. We can't take, because if we take, we're outside of the square. And this is a very annoying check on h8. Black is threatening wherever you go to match you with checks. I don't see how white gets out of the perpetual. Neither did Sam Shankland actually. So he gave up the h2 pawn, but it's too much. We can't even take this because queen check, picking up the queen, a skewer. So well, credit to Shankland for at least trying, even though it was impossible here. And it was so impossible that he's damaging his position here, and now he's going to lose this pawn as well. And he actually resigned, and Kajakin won this game, although Shankland could have taken a draw whenever he wanted, but of course a draw and a loss both mean that Shankland is out. Very good fight, he had a good World Cup, but unfortunately he met the Minister of Defense, and yeah, his participation is over, but he can be very happy with his performance, and hopefully there are more good things to come from Sam Shankland. Anyway, that was the tiebreak today. I think we have a rest day tomorrow, and then the fun continues in the semi-finals, and hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Bye bye.